Hello everyone, and welcome to our third annual Keon Fasting Challenge. Thank you so much for joining us. It gets bigger and bigger every year. We have tens of thousands of you kicking off your new year with the Keon Fast. So thank you so much for being here. We are going to be kicking off our educational series this week with a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is fasting for women and women's health. In this video, I'm going to be covering why women should approach fasting differently than men, which groups of women should not fast, the best fasting methods for healthy premenopausal women, and tips to make sure that fasting is working for you and not against you. So before I jump in, who am I? My name is Kelsey Hess. I'm a certified transformational nutrition coach and women's health expert, and I also happen to be the content and brand manager here at Keon. I have been using fasting as a health modality for the last decade to naturally manage an autoimmune disease, and I have done everything wrong that you can do and have experienced all the side effects that a lot of women experience with fasting. So I really am passionate about this topic and sharing with you ways that women can fast healthfully, safely, and beneficially. So for the purposes of this video, I'm only going to focus on fasting methods for healthy premenopausal women. So typically under the age of 45, that's still our reproductive age. Although I will say I think most women will find value in this video. And if you want more in-depth information on this topic, including all the scientific research we currently have available, as well as tips for postmenopausal women, you can go to getkeon.com/fastingwomen to read a 2-part blog series that I wrote on this topic, and it's way more in-depth than this video is. So after you watch this, I invite you to go read that 2-part series. Now, a quick medical disclaimer, I am not a doctor, I don't play one on the internet, and neither does anyone at Keon, so please do not take this as medical advice. If you have any specific questions or concerns, definitely talk to a qualified healthcare practitioner. Additionally, these are just general guidelines. I firmly believe in biochemical individuality, which means that something that may work for me and works for another woman may not work for you. We're all different. We all have different experiences with fasting. And so you really need to pay attention to your body, pay attention to how you specifically are reacting, and make decisions based on that. All right, so to tackle the elephant in the room, why should women even think differently about fasting than men? And the truth here is that we don't have a lot of scientific ground to stand on when it comes to how fasting affects women, especially healthy premenopausal women. Most of the studies that are done on fasting and its health benefits are either done on men or are done on mice. But the small amount of research we do have on fasting and how it affects women tells us that there is a difference. Fasting is, by definition, a shift in your caloric intake. It doesn't always mean calorie restriction, but it is signaling a change in caloric intake to your body. And based on the very limited amount of studies we do have, it's pretty clear that women can be more sensitive to caloric shifts, and our bodies have a protective mechanism to respond to these shifts by lowering the precursors to our reproductive hormones. Now this makes sense, right? If the body is unsure about when or where it's going to get food, the last thing it wants to do is allow us to reproduce and grow a very energy expensive baby. So it makes sense from an ancestral perspective why women have this specific protective mechanism that men may not have. So with all that being said, am I saying women shouldn't fast? No, not necessarily. Like I said, I've practiced fasting for the last decade as a healthy premenopausal woman. It's really more nuanced than that, and it depends on your personal health history. And anyone telling you that women should or should not fast isn't giving you a full picture, because the truth is science doesn't have it yet. We don't have enough scientific ground to stand on when it comes to making claims about fasting for women. So ultimately, it's up to you to decide, to do research, to educate yourself, to pay attention to your body, to determine if it's right for you or if it's not. However, because of the implications that fasting can have on reproductive hormones, there are definitely populations that really shouldn't be practicing extended fasting or regular fasting. And this includes, but of course isn't limited to, females under the age of 18, women who are extremely lean, so typically less than 18% body fat, women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, those that are trying to conceive, or those with a history of eating disorders. If you fall into any of those groups, fasting is probably not right for you right now. Other women that should be careful with fasting and not overdo it include competitive athletes or women that are extremely active. We need a lot of fuel, right? And those that have a history of hormone disorders, thyroid disorders, infertility, or irregular menstrual cycles should also practice caution because they're going to be a little bit more sensitive to these caloric shifts. All right, so if you don't fall into any of those cautionary groups, here are my tips for you. So tip number 1 for healthy premenopausal women, get clear on why you're fasting in the first place. Chances are all the things you've heard that fasting can do for you in terms of shredded abs and endless energy and better insulin sensitivity may not actually be proven in women just yet. So if you're hoping to lose a few pounds, research shows that fasting may not be an effective weight loss method for young, healthy women. Again, it may be a different story if you have a significant amount of weight to lose and are working with a doctor. If you want to improve your insulin sensitivity, fasting may actually negatively impact glucose responses in premenopausal women. Again, not necessarily the case if you have a metabolic disorder. And then finally, if you're trying to boost autophagy so you could live to 150, aren't we all? And fasting has definitely been shown to boost autophagy and have beneficial effects on longevity, but it is not the only way to boost autophagy. Hot-cold contrast, HIIT and strength training, good sleep, polyphenol-rich foods, these are all things that can do the same thing that fasting can without the potential negative side effects to women's hormones. Now, this is not to say that fasting doesn't have any benefits. It can still serve a positive purpose in your life, especially if you're fasting for another reason like gut health, immune system health, mental acuity, or some sort of spiritual purpose. It may just not have the same physical benefits on women as it does for men, and that's the important thing to take away. So tip number 2, fasting for women is to reduce stress. Fasting by definition is a stress. It's a hormetic stressor, which is considered a good stress like cold therapy or exercise. However, when you stack it on top of other stressors such as sleep deprivation, loads of physical activity, calorie restriction, macronutrient restriction such as keto, or any other kinds of lifestyle stress that we all have, fasting just becomes more stress. And we know for women that too much stress is kind of the fast track to hormonal hell. So if you're going to fast, make sure you are reducing stress in the rest of your life. Tip number 3 is to opt for shorter or less frequent fasts. Doing the daily 18-hour intermittent fast 7 days a week may work for some women, but for many premenopausal females, it can really lead to hormonal issues if practiced over a long period of time. Instead, it seems to be a lot safer for young women to stick to shorter or less frequent fasts. For example, if you're fasting for mental clarity, circadian rhythm alignment, or just general health, a daily 12 to 14 hour intermittent fast sounds simple, but you actually get a lot of benefits for fasting for 12 to 14 hours. And it's very easy. You just stop eating at around 8 p.m. and don't eat breakfast again around 8 or 10 a.m. the next day. So that's a great one to do if you're looking for just the general health benefits of fasting. If you're looking for a little more support for gut and liver health or immune system health or longevity, you can do what's called an occasional prolonged caloric fast. And the reason why fast is in quotation marks there is because you're actually going to be consuming calories in some form. If you've read our ebook for the challenge Fasting Decoded, there's a fasting type in there called caloric liquid fasting. This is what I'm talking about here, and Keon actually coined that term. So what this looks like is a 3 to 5 day calorie restricted fast 1 to 4 times a year. And typically that looks like a bone broth fast or a smoothie fast, or a fasting mimicking diet such as Prolong fits into this category as well. So you really want to only do those for 3 to 5 days, maximum 4 times a year if you're a young, healthy woman. And tip number 4 is to time your fast with your menstrual cycle. So if you are going to do one of those longer fasts, I definitely recommend timing it with your menstrual cycle if possible. Now, there's not a lot of science on this, but what we do know is likely the best time to fast is during the first half of your cycle, between the last day of your period and ovulation. So typically between days 4 or 5 to 14, obviously depending on the female. This first half is when estrogen is high, which keeps you satiated and energized. After ovulation in the second half, on the other hand, progesterone is higher. And so you'll find that fasting is much harder, you're much hungrier, and you have a lot more cravings because your metabolism is being amped up. So if you're going to do a longer fast, try to do it between days 5 to 14 of your cycle. Finally, tip 5 for our healthy premenopausal women is to watch out for any warning signs that fasting is not working for you. If you've been practicing fasting for a long time, it's really important to stop and ask yourself, is this working for me or is this working against me? If it's working against you, you may be experiencing some negative side effects due to the shift in reproductive hormones. This can be a wide range of things for a lot of people, but typically includes poor sleep, low libido, binge eating, low energy, thinning hair, acne or dry skin, always feeling cold, irregular heartbeats, irregular menstrual cycles or loss of your period altogether, and resistance to weight gain, gaining weight, or losing muscle. These are all signs that your fasting practice is not working for you and you should reevaluate it. If it's working for you, then you should feel healthy, you should feel energized, you should feel good, sleep well, perform well, and have a body composition that you feel happy with. So that's it. If you're a premenopausal female that wants to practice fasting, number 1, get clear on why you're doing it. Number 2, reduce as much stress in your life as you possibly can. Number 3, choose shorter or less frequent fasts. 4, time your fast with your menstrual cycle. And 5, pay attention to how your body is responding and look out for those warning signs that I mentioned. Okay, I hope this was helpful for everyone. If you have any specific questions or comments, please drop them in the comments below this video and I will personally take time to respond. Thank you so much for joining us for this challenge. It's day 1. We've still got a ton of awesome content to come. And again, if you want more information on this topic, you can check out the 2-part blog series at getkion.com/fastingwomen. Okay, happy fasting.